Freaks of nature in sports don't have anything to do with skill. Just because they're freak athletes doesn't mean they're instantly the best, but more often than not, them being as gifted as they are is enough to put them among some of the top of their sport. And the fact that some of these guys had the skill to go along with that did elevate them to the very top of their respective leagues. So we're switching things up and gonna look at every major sport and sports league and determine the freak of nature from each. And we'll start with MMA. There is an honorable mention I want to give out though, because both of these guys are very athletic for very different reasons. Now there's really nothing too great about Bob Sapp except his look and sheer size. He's never fought in the UFC because he became such a big deal in Japan, so his career's been over there. But over the past 10 or so years, he's thrown all his fights for easy paychecks, leaving him with a 12-20 MMA record and a 12-19 kickboxing record. At first glance, most men would fear the sight of the 6'5", 330-pound man with abs, but apparently he's not so scary once he's in the ring. But even he's no match for MMA's real freak of nature and Brock Lesnar. No matter how you look at it, Brock may be the most physically gifted fighter to ever step into a UFC cage. He fought at 6'3", 265 pounds. He was the NCAA D1 champion in college in 2000, tried out for the Minnesota Vikings in 2004 at 27 years old, when he attended the combine and recorded a 4.7 second 40, a 35-inch vertical, and benched 225 30 times. But then he soon after got into a motorcycle accident, broke his jaw, his hand, bruised his pelvis, and his groin. But he still worked out for the Vikings, got signed even with his injuries, and impressed a lot of people, but was cut 1 month later. So then he went to the UFC, and in his debut, he's such a monster of a man. He wore XXXXL gloves, the same as 7'2" fighter Choi Hongman wore. And with very little training compared to his opponents, he won the UFC heavyweight title in his third ever fight on November 14th, 2008. Well, fast forward 1 year later, and Brock was still the champ, but had been out with a very serious case of diverticulitis that he didn't know if he was gonna survive, and it got so bad, but eventually surgery fixed it. The doctor told him though that he had had the illness for about a year, which meant that he won the UFC title while he had a serious intestinal issue. But now let's move over to boxing, and there's a lot of freaks of nature there, but I'm gonna go with Mike Tyson. There was absolutely nothing exaggerated in Mike's nickname of being the baddest man on the planet. In his prime, he was the most feared boxer of all time. Before that though, we've heard the stories of when he first started boxing at 16, he would fight and knock out grown men. But on his podcast, Iron Mike said that started on the street when he was 11 and would knock out guys in their 20s. He had natural power, explosiveness, timing, hand speed, accuracy, coordination, and strength that we had never seen before. At 18 years old, he won 26 of his first 28 fights by knockout, and 16 of them were in the first round. Then 2 years later, he won the world title at 20 years old, becoming the youngest ever. And if he wasn't his own worst enemy, his short stint on top could have lasted years and years. For basketball, I think it's an easy choice. Shaq was an unstoppable force, LeBron's a freak of nature like no other, but Wilt Chamberlain is the most athletic phenomenon we've ever seen in the NBA. I mentioned it in my last video, but he either has hundreds of fake rumors out there about how good of an athlete he was, or most of them are just actually true. I'll list some of them and you can decide for yourself on what to believe. Wilt Chamberlain was reportedly 6 foot tall at the age of 10 and 6'11" by the time he entered high school. He was a superstar in track, but basketball was more popular, so he switched to it. He averaged 38 points a game across his entire high school career and was recruited by over 200 universities. He was 7 foot 1 inches tall with a 48-inch vertical leap. When he was in high school, he beat a college player so bad in a game of one-on-one that he gave up his dreams of playing in the NBA and became a tractor farmer instead. He could easily touch the top of backboards. He once helped 2 delivery men lift a cart through a hotel, and the cart was 600 pounds. He would often pick up grown men with ease. He could run a sub 11-second 100-meter dash, and he once blocked a shot so hard into the ground that he broke the shooter's toe with the ball. Most of these sound unbelievable, but his 50-point per game season and hundreds of NBA records give us a glimpse of real recorded domination by him on the court, so who knows. As for the NFL, we've seen a lot of freakish athleticism. Guys that make themselves look like grown men playing with little boys. Guys like DK Metcalf, Randy Moss, Deion Sanders, Calvin Johnson, and Derrick Henry. But before naming the true owner of this spot, I want to give a quick mention to Herschel Walker, because being a freak of nature is what he's mainly known for. He says ever since high school, he's never used weights and instead used to do 3,500 push-ups and sit-ups every single day, and still does 1,500 a day at 59 years old. But Herschel was a superstar in high school at football and track and field, put up world-class Olympic times in several events, and he used that speed to become a superstar at Georgia before becoming an even bigger one in the NFL. He also has a 5th degree black belt and even oddly competed in the 1992 Olympics for bobsledding. Then to top it all off, at 48 years old, decided to pursue an MMA career and even even got 2 knockout victories for Strikeforce. But even he had nothing on being as much of an athlete as Bo Jackson was, who is football and baseball's all-time biggest freak of nature. He played football, baseball, and competed in track in high school and dominated all 3. He did the same in college, then played in the MLB and NFL at the same time as a pro. And at 6'1", 220 pounds, recorded an all-time NFL record 4.13 second 40-yard dash time. He was the fastest player on the field at all times, but was strong enough to bounce off defenders left and right. He was a star in both sports he played, but one of the biggest tragedies across all sports is that his professional career only lasted 4 seasons before he was forced to retire because of a freak hip injury. For track and field, it's an easy choice that Usain Bolt deserves a spot. He's considered the greatest sprinter of all time and the fastest man to have ever lived. He still holds the record for the 100 and 200 meter dash, along with 17 other world records in running. And it really helps him that he's 6'5". Compare this to 2 of his main competitors who were 5'10" and 5'11". Most runners are 6 feet and under. The smaller you are, the faster muscle speed you have. See, shorter sprinters have more fast twitch muscle fibers that allows them to accelerate quicker, but Bolt's unique in that he somehow has the same amount of fast twitch muscle fibers while obviously having legs of a 6'5" man, giving him a unique advantage that can't be stopped. For hockey in the NHL, Zdeno Chara is their biggest freak of nature. He's the tallest player to have ever played professional hockey, and not only that, but he's in the middle, well, more like the end of a 24-year career playing the sport, and he just towers over everyone else on the ice. Not even to mention he can do all this while still playing 35 minutes a night. If we switch gears though to strongman and more specifically the world's strongest man competition, we'll see we got some more competition here, and there's a lot of ways we can go with this one, but I'll break it down to 3 people. Our first freak of nature who comes from World's Strongest Man is Darren Sadler, the shortest man to have ever competed at 5'8" tall. He never won the contest, but he was invited to it 4 years in a row. And that's impressive for someone his height to be competing with these guys that are 6'8", who are an entire foot taller than him. I don't know what I expected someone so short and muscular to look like, but I didn't expect him to have no visible neck. For our next strong man, Halfbor Bjornsson's the most popular, and for the fact that he's 6'9" and has broken dozens of records, and even some set 1,000 years ago, he deserved a mention. And so does Marusz Pudzianowski. He stands at 6'1", but he's won the World's Strongest Man competition a record 5 times, and has won first place in 40 out of the 56 total competitions he's been in. But not only that, he's also in the middle of an MMA career he started back in 2009, and to date he has a 15-7 record, with 11 of those victories coming by knockout. All I know is this dude is the last guy I'd want to be in the octagon with. And our final strongman is the tallest to ever compete in World's Strongest Man, Ted van der Paar, and he actually won it back in 1991. But speaking of tall, that brings us to something similar but a little different in bodybuilders. And it may not be a traditional sport, but it is considered one. And it's also brought us this man, Oliver Richters. Now, all bodybuilders look like freaks in nature, but this guy's something else. He's the world's tallest, standing at 7'2". He started in competitions, but more recently it started to land him a lot of major roles in movies due to how freakishly large he is. Here's him standing next to the mountain. Here's him standing next to a mountain, sitting on a plane, ordering from McDonald's, standing next to an average-sized person, standing next to an average-sized bodybuilder. As you can see, this man does not seem human. For soccer, okay, I'll be honest, I know nothing about soccer, and if it was another category, if we were talking about greatest soccer player ever, I could dig something up. But in terms of freaks of nature, I don't know enough about the sport to have been able to pick someone. So comment your pick for who I should have given this spot to instead. Moving over to swimming though, when you think of competitive swimming, you think of one man, and that's Michael Phelps, who is the most successful and decorated Olympian of all time, with 28 total Olympic medals and 23 of them being gold. He's part man, part fish, and there's no other way around it. I'm not even exaggerating that much. To this day, he still holds 39 swimming world records, with many of them being thought to be untouchable, and there's good reasons when you get into the science behind it, because quite literally Michael Phelps is built different, and his body was almost completely made for swimming. Swimmers tend to have longer torsos and shorter legs. Well, Phelps stands at 6'4", but has the torso of someone 6'8" and the legs of someone 6 foot. He also has an unusually large 6'7" wingspan, and his elbows and ankles are double jointed, meaning his ankles can bend 15% more than the competition, and that combined with his size, 14 feet, make his feet work like flippers. And his elbows, large arms, and hands cause his arms to work like paddles, so no wonder he was so successful.